Strike Freedom Gundam. Hey, welcome back. Robert wanted you for 2Rs2Bs, as always, gundam.tk, and you've seen the D-box of the perfect grade Strike Freedom Gundam. And yeah, what you see here, this is only half of the plates. But anyway, it's time to take a little closer look at what's inside the box before it actually gets put together. When all the plates are laid out, you've got a virtual rainbow of colors here. In the back, we've got the 3 different golds. You've got the blue, the white plates, the dark blue for the dragoons. You've got a sheet of gray there, sheets of black that actually match the black in the base, if you want to count that as separate. Gray, red, polycap gray, along with a couple of other parts that are listed there, chrome silver parts, and on the A plate, you're going to have the white, the yellow, the clear parts, and a black that is distinct in color from any other plate. I may be miscounting, but if you exclude the shield and the beam sabers, you're going to have 54 plates in total. Although a few of these are pretty tiny, and that is counting the polycaps. And my humblest apologies to all of you Infinite Justice lovers and Shin supporters out there, because the first thing I did was take a look at all these plates, and they all say Perfect Grade 1/60th Strike Freedom Gundam. So the idea of the inner frame being used for the other Seed Destiny kits doesn't seem to be in the cards at the moment. This is the Master Grade Strike Freedom, and this is the full burst mode, whose review is filmed but not up yet. Anyway, long story short, the final answer about this one is that it has a big knock against it, and that's because of the inconsistency of the gold. Basically, you're going to get 2 plates of beautiful gold parts, and the whole rest are a very dull gold. And when you put those 2 together, they end up looking terrible. So what I did to make this look a little bit better is that I ended up using just a gold Gundam marker and going over any parts that's exposed to try to make the lustrous parts match a little bit more even. But that is going to be an issue here with the perfect grade. I hope this comes through clearly on your screens, but can you guess which of these you get the most of? Well, yeah, that's going to be the El Cheapo one, which is basically the same gold that you get on the inside of the Master Grade Strike Freedom. You're also going to get 2 of these beautifully made up parts, and you can see that these are going to be used in quite a few of the very visible places like the knees, the elbows, and the thighs when you open up everything. But the majority of the nice parts, I think you get 5 of these in total, are sort of this toned down gold. It's not as lustrous as this, and it's certainly not as dull as this. But anyway, these are going to be used for most of the parts on the inner parts of the dragoons, but there are still going to be a ton of parts where you're going to have this gold part, which means if you do decide to do some touching up, you're either going to want to paint all of these ahead of time, or you're going to want to put it together and then go over it afterwards, which can be a little bit difficult, or you're going to have to figure out exactly which parts need touching up before you put this whole thing together. For the highlights of some of the main plates, including the A plate here, you're going to have the yellow V-fin, which is looking sharp and skinny. All the parts that you need for the head, and you'll notice on the face mask that there's an actual hole there. And that's because on this black part, which you put around the eyes, which is going to allow the light to come through, that it actually has a black part that goes down and fills those in, so you don't have to do any lining to get the black effect behind the face guard. You're also going to get clear parts. A lot of those are light piping for the head, and you're also going to have clear parts in this little cool looking V thing which go on the dragoons, and you can see the 2 Kira figures there in the middle. Some big parts here on the white C plate, though if you built the 1/60th non-grade Freedom, they're nowhere near as large overall. The L and M parts bring a smile to my face because you'll notice for the beam rifles you're going to have the white parts, but unlike the Master Grade, which uses just a cheap sticker, you're actually going to have very small blue parts here, which are going to go and add the much needed color trim onto the weapons. The Dragoon parts are looking appropriately huge, but what's interesting is when you look on the inside and you see all of the channels, which is going to be used in the Dragoon deployment sequence. If you're into bling, you'll love the G plate as it sparkles here under the lights. But if you're not a big fan of painting, you're going to have a problem with the fact that not more plates look like this. Anyway, what you are going to get is the elbows, the thighs, the shoulders, the ankles, the feet, and a few other small parts. So overall, quite a few of the noticeable parts are going to be gold, but the biggest parts, the dragoons, are not going to be as sparkly as this. The E plate is a 1.5er, and you can see here that you're going to have nicer silver for the shoulders, for the feet, and quite a few other trim parts, especially on the legs. And otherwise the chest, etc., and the vents for the chest are also going to be made out of the second best gold. Good gold here on the W for the insides of the Dragoons, but again, those are not all of the exposed parts. The N has lots of small parts which are all going to be used for the manipulators, and again, this is shiny. Here's J1 and J2, and that's going to have parts for the railguns, the shield generators, and then you're going to have the face and cockpit part over there. This might not show it all that well, but how cool is that they've got the proper rating and the model number there on the jewel for the V-fin. Moving into the less colorful parts, the O plate is the only one in this color, and this is going to be for the inside and the weapons ends of the beam rifles. And again, all sorts of good details like paneling, etc. here, that if you were a dry brusher, you could really make these pop. Here are the eye plates with everything you need for the side weapons, and you're going to have parts here for the chest and cockpit area. And I'm really glad that you don't have to use any gray paint or anything silly like that for the face of a perfect grade. 2.5 plates here for the Z plates, and it looks like all sorts of mechanism parts there. Back to the big parts on the R plate with the parts that you're going to need for the darker parts of the chest and the wing binders. 4 copies of this plate with variations of the U parts for the Dragoons. This Q plate is the largest plate of the set, but a little bit disappointing that on these parts here you're going to put in the clear part for the V on the Dragoons, but it's sort of disappointing that it's not going to be clear on clear, but it's going to be clear just on this black-blue background. These plates are identical in colors, but these are just regular poly caps, whereas these are the regular solid plastic. Shiny silver there for some of the parts that are going to provide piping in the feet, which is always a good touch for perfect grades. And a whole chunk of regular gold parts, which are going to make up the inner parts of the Dragoon and the whole inner frame itself. Well, not the whole inner frame, but except where there's shiny parts, this is going to make up the rest, and it really is disappointing in that color. This may not be the last time that I mention my disappointment, but again, you could paint these yourself before you put this together, or try to deal with it afterwards. But if you lived in Tokyo, you could go get those plated at a professional shop, which would be pretty nice, though expensive. And finally, here is the shield, which is going to shimmer in the moonlight. Reminds me of the Gundam X manga. And here you've got the beam sabers, which look a little bit different to me from 1/60th Exia or the Perfect Grade 00. Interesting that they've got those at the end. Here are the parts. P for the action base, huge attachments there, and it looks like everything else that you're going to need, and I wonder if these are going to be used elsewhere. Now that's a lot of plates. So anyway, what's your impression so far? Mine's pretty positive so far, besides the things that I've mentioned negatively. Anyway, everybody, stay tuned for the next parts where I will look at the other things that come in the box, and then stay tuned, of course, to see this whole thing put together into the massive beast that it will surely become. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Robert184, gundam.tk. Like if you do, don't if you don't, and subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time. Shin, what are you doing? You're not the only one who's not getting a perfect grade out of the deal.